The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
The Dialed In Angling podcast presented by OnX Fish, Arneson's Rocky Point Resort, Strike Master, 13 Fishing, and Rapala. We are on the shores of Mille Lacs Lake this week. I'm sitting down with Dane
Vocelka.
Yes, sir. Of the Champions Tour. They've got a unique event right now on Mille Lacs, the Champions Tour. A lot of you may know if you follow them. Like, I have a lot of friends that fish the Champions Tour for bass. This is a unique walleye event on Mille Lacs. I've been super geeked up about this thing.
Certainly.
And it's great to get in contact with you. And Dane, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony. This is a super exciting time for the fishing industry and really one for the books. I think it's a catalyst, for something much bigger in the near future.
Yeah, I love these catch, record, release formats. What you've done here, we want to talk about the details of this tournament, how you run the tournament, some of the small nuances of this tournament, because I love it. I'm a tournament angler at heart. I fish a lot of tournaments over the years. And, I just remember back in the day when you had slot tournaments only, with regulations in Minnesota and different areas. And although I didn't mind slot tournaments, I hated the weigh-in and the bags and bringing fish in, and just someone who was very conservation-minded. Back in the day, I just hated toting around an 8-pound walleye in my live well all day, worried about that fish, worried about killing that fish, and then first of all, getting it to the tank, weighing it in, and then, of course, releasing it. And then over the years, especially for walleyes, you're always handcuffed to that slot limit, right? And what you guys have done with this sort of format where it's catch, record, release, every fish counts. It's not just going after the, 5 big fish you can. What you're doing here, I love this format, not just for walleye fishing, but for bass as well.
Certainly. And, you touched on a few different things there. One is conservation. 2 is the challenge with the sportsmanship mixed in with every fish counts. It's just a whole different world of tournament fishing, right? And then you pair in another unique part of this whole equation, which is the marshals, because that's the youth of the sport that we're trying to teach the etiquette. We're being mentors. We're really raising and truly breeding the proper way of handling both fish, water etiquette, and everything else around it. Scott Bonema did a great job creating the Champions Tour on the bass side. Now it's kind of my legacy to make my footprint on both walleye and bass. So there's a lot of new features and twists and turns to the event with how we split the lake, how we handle our media content and how it's all captured, and then how we give that back to the viewer to not only educate, but entertain and provide a service to everyone that's trying to be a part of it.
And that's the fun part for me as an angler, as people that I know that are fishing the Champions Tour on the bass side and now the walleye side, is the app that you have.
Yes.
This morning I saw your Facebook post. I went quickly on the app. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about the app, kind of the interface, what you're doing out there with anglers that are on the water so that they can stay connected and they can be part of this whole Champions Walleye Tour on Mille Lacs?
Yeah. So the Real Live Well app has this new feature that was just revealed as of yesterday. It's the video vault. Now, anyone can sign up and use the Real Live Well app and watch the live events free from a leaderboard standpoint. But for anglers that are creating a name for themselves and using the Real Live Well app as a platform, they're allowed to film live content within the Real Live Well app, we're allowing those anglers to stream. And from the viewership standpoint, you can pick and choose the anglers who decide to go live. In this event, there aren't any that are choosing to do so because it was a kind of a last minute test run, if you will. But I have dropped live feeds now in the second half into some boats that will allow you to pick certain anglers by name to watch. And then we have the obvious media content and the finished, refined product at the end that will, provide the final production piece, the 45-minute to an hour show. But that app now, again, like I said, it provides content, education, and entertainment for you to pick and choose. And as this thing continues to grow, if you sign into the app, you create an account, and you upgrade to the Pro subscription, which is a $9.99 annual fee, you get free access then to all of our digital tournaments and the content throughout all of the live events. So it really provides a ton for not only high school anglers, walleye anglers, and bass anglers alike, but other competitors that want to lean in and learn some of those more detailed techniques.
Very cool. So that's Real Live Well app.
The Real Live Well app.
R-E-E-L.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Real
I connected
Live Well.
this morning.
Yeah.
I've got it on my phone. I've been following it. Obviously, a few anglers that are fishing it, like the Nitties. I grew up with the Nitties. They're more like cousins to me than
than competitors, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so George Nitty's like an uncle to me. But so I've been following them this morning on the Real Live Well app. You're going to want to check it out. When this podcast airs, a lot of the tournament will be wrapped up.
Yep.
I quickly want to go back to Nitties after you guys have this ceremony, and I want to talk to some of the anglers, get their input of what they thought about it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the tournament itself. I love, like I said earlier in the podcast, I really love the every fish counts aspect where you're totaling up every fish, that cumulative aspect of every fish. Can you tell us how the fish are weighed, how they're calculated, the whole Marshall system? Because this tournament is really, it's one angler on the water competing against other anglers. You don't have a co-angler. You don't have a pro-am style. This is an angler that's in the boat. They've got a Marshall calculating it. Can you walk us through all the steps and all the nuances to the tournament? Because I know there's rules as far as dropping fish and different things. Can you explain all that to us?
Yeah, so there's a lot of variables to touch on there. So let's touch on the marshals. So we select the marshals from various high school tournament fishing programs across the state. Most boat officials are between the ages of 13 and 18, and they are paired in the morning with their pro. Now, before the tournament takes place, we have videos that allow the boat officials to dive in and understand the catch, weigh, release method. The official is the marshal in the boat that handles the scale, doesn't handle the fish, but reads the weight and documents the weight within the Real Live Well app and on a physical piece of paper for that angler to initial. That process is something that has been repeated now for over a decade, and it's a proven process that not only allows you to come back and double check the entries within the app, but verify both the handwritten and the technology. So if someone were to lose the app or lose their phone, there's still a golden sheet, if you will, right, to bring back in to cross-verify. Now, those marshals, right, are in a random pool, and most of them are tournament anglers themselves. So they get to learn a ton about angling techniques. And like I said, learn from a mentorship standpoint, develop that etiquette, and continue forward. And we've seen now a wave of marshals now enter as the tournament angler, which is the coolest part of the whole process. So that is the boat official selection process and how they catch, weigh, and release method through the Real Live Well app. Second question you had was about the anglers. Individual anglers competing amongst themselves. There is no partner. So really the marshal is essentially their partner, if you will, as a team member to help capture content, right? Take the picture, help weigh the fish, and they become much more of like a team or a buddy-buddy system towards the end. And that's where you see the smiles, the exchange of notes and phone numbers and tackle and gear, because they truly are part of the tournament as a whole, right? Weighing those fish, recording them, and keeping that process moving forward. At no point throughout the tournament does the angler ever have to pick up a phone and call me because the app isn't working. They get to continue to fish. But the marshals, they can communicate with me and my team on shore to make sure we can provide the entertainment factor to everybody that's watching abroad. So that's the neat part about that process, is the angler just gets to focus on the catching.
That's cool. I think what you're bringing this whole mentorship into the martial aspect. I know a ton of anglers that would die to do something like this, to jump in the boat with these caliber of anglers and then to learn from them. I know I've fished tournaments in the past where they had a marshal in the boat. It was a great experience. I get to, like you said, you become friends with that person in your boat. I know one guy was a younger guy. I connected with him. We stayed in contact for a long period of time. Anytime he was fishing Mille Lacs, Winnie Leach, he'd always reach out to me. And yeah, you kind of get this bond. That is a cool aspect of the tournament. And then on top of it, every fish counts, right? Every fish over 2 pounds in this particular tournament counts. Sir. I absolutely love that. I always thought, it's one thing if you're going out targeting big fish. It's one thing if you're going out targeting big fish and slots. It's one thing, there's different formats that people love as a tournament angler. I love this catch, record, release. Every fish counts. Every fish that you're going to go to the net, you're excited about, you're intense. You don't want that fish to come off. Whereas if you're only going after big ones, for example, every angler knows you get one on that's less than ideal. You crank that thing in as fast as you can. You get to the next fish. Not with this format. Every fish counts. You're handling that fish with care. You're making sure that fish hits the scale. Talk us through some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, the penalty part of the whole thing is a variable. Again, one of the 3 questions that when that fish comes into the boat, it's handling the resource and respecting it. So as that fish comes into the boat, it goes through the weigh-in process on the scale. At no point can that fish be dropped or mishandled or even released from over the gunnel. The marshal then can impose a penalty, a 2-minute penalty, if you toss a walleye, even a short or a non-scoreable fish at a pound. Tossing a walleye over the side of the boat will then put you on timeout for 2 minutes. And the marshal will start a stopwatch and make you sit there for 2 minutes where you can't do anything. So it makes you rethink how you're treating the resource, how you're showing, again, the youth that kind of etiquette with the fish and appreciation of everything. But it also is really, really, really good content to show the general public how respectful we can be as tournament anglers, not taking these fish back into the weigh-in takes and releasing them immediately over the side of the boat appropriately, maturely, to make sure that that resource is there for you to catch again.
I love it. I think a lot of tournament anglers sometimes get a bad name, get a bad rap from some of the locals saying, these tournament anglers, Most tournament guys that I know are super respectful of the resource. They love fishing. The reason they're doing it is because they absolutely love fishing. They love the resources. They love to be able to come out onto a lake like Mille Lacs and do exactly what we're doing as far as a catch, record, release format in this method. I think it's awesome. I think what you guys are doing is awesome. I love that you're building something here, especially on the walleye side of things. I love bass fishing as much as I love walleye fishing, but I know there's a lot of people that are laser focused on one species, or they may just follow one species. A lot of my friends are walleye oriented. That's just how I grew up. But I have friends that have fished the Champions Tour and absolutely love it. And I follow them on the bass side of things. So I'm pumped to have the Real Live Well app where I can check in on various tournaments that you have coming up. I'm excited to see you guys build this thing. That's why I was pumped to have you on the podcast. What are a couple other penalties that you can talk about? Because I've heard from other anglers and I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. Like, what are some of the other penalties that you have built into that as well?
Yeah, so as you catch a fish throughout the catch, weigh, release process, if you were to write down a weight of the fish and not initial after you release that fish and you were to continue fishing, that essentially is putting a fish in your live well and not culling in this case, which would the consequence would be your cast or the next fish caught would be disqualified. So every catch you make must be followed by an initial on the scorecard. Hooking onto private property, if you're fishing docks or structure and things like that, where you're hooking onto a dock and you break off, you're imposed more than a 2-minute penalty. In some cases, 4 and 5 minute penalties are imposed for things of that nature. So the most common one we really see is going to be the fish hitting the side of the boat as you're boat flipping it in, or in the walleye events, using a net, landing it, but then pulling it out of the net and dropping the fish on the carpet. Those penalties are the most common that we see.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's cool. I think it adds sort of that element of not only being conservative, but also just a fun-natured deal. And then also, as you construct this tournament, I know there's boundaries that you set up for mornings and evenings. Like I'm sitting down with you midday of the tournament.
Yeah.
This morning, the anglers went out. They started in a certain zone. This afternoon, you mixed it up. You have it in a different zone. Talk us through some of that stuff.
Yeah. So the night before, the anglers have zero idea if we're going to split the lake in half, which way we're going to split it, and how we're going to break that down. That is something that makes you as an angler look at the entire lake from a different perspective. We'll split it midday and allow you to fish a morning half and an afternoon half. So the night beforehand, pre-tournament meeting, here's the big surprise. And this week, it was a northwest corner to a southeast corner split right across the lake. They get to, they will fish one half and then fish the second half in the afternoon. They're not allowed to cast into the other zone. And if they are fishing an area that is questionable, whether it lies on the line or not, they have to decide which half they're fishing in. In this case, weather was kind of a factor. Safety is our priority. It's a number one priority. It's my concern in every event. So we split the lake to allow safe water to be fished in both halves, especially on a lake like Mille Lacs where those waves can get pretty sporty. And they were awoken yesterday evening to the lake split, which is new in the walleye world.
And it's cool because you take a lake like Mille Lacs, for example, how big it is, and you factor in the fact that anglers are going to go out and pre-fish different areas. They don't know where they're going to start. They don't know which zones they're going to be able to fish in. It gives a real twist to the entire tournament angling. And you couple that with the fact that there's wind and weather. Anytime you're on a lake this size, even a 5 mile an hour wind can be challenging depending on where you're launching from. And so I think it's really cool. I like the fact when I pulled up here this afternoon and I see all the boats going the other way, just knowing from a guide from being out here where I would be fishing the tournament right now.
Yep.
And it's cool to see that whole aspect. So I'm pumped to get over to the weigh-in. I want to see kind of your whole format when it comes to the ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
I know, Dane, there's people waiting for you. They're pulling you away. You promised me 15 minutes.
Yes,
we are
sir.
at the 16-minute mark. We'll take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to interview some of the people fishing this walleye tournament, this very unique walleye tournament through the Champions Tour. Also, we'll talk a little bit more about the LiveWell app, how other anglers can get involved, whether they want to be a marshal or whatever. We've got more from the Champions Tour, the Walleye edition, Mille Lacs edition. When we come back, we're going to come live. We're going to talk to some of the anglers as they are coming in. I want to get their take on this tournament. Dane, thank you so much for carving out some time, talking with us at Dialed In Angling. I know there's a ton of people that are pumped about this. I was talking to my friends this morning, just standing drinking coffee, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go over and interview these guys. I'm super pumped. So the buzz is out there, and I know after we air this, I know that we're going to get a ton of questions on this. So thank you so much for sitting down. We got more from Dialed In Angling podcast after this. Arneson's Rocky Point Resort in northern Minnesota offers a little something for everyone. Nestled on Lake of the Woods' South Shore, it provides easy access to 14 remarkable reefs. Serious anglers know that Arneson's offers some of the best fishing, charter fishing, and small boat fishing options, all supported by the largest protected marina on the lake's South Shore. Accommodation selections range from 1 to 5 bedrooms. Equipped with all the modern conveniences, guests can enjoy a delightful dining experience and stunning lake views at the Rock Harbor Lodge, an on-site, full-service bar and restaurant. The two beaches provide hours of fun for the whole family. Whether you're seeking an idyllic fishing spot or a relaxing vacation, Arneson's Rocky Point has everything you need. Check them out at arnesonsresort.com. OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Quickly filter lakes by species, then select trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, or high stocking effort to find the fish you're after in the size and the numbers you are trying to catch. Download from the App Store today to get research tools for the serious anglers and beginners alike, giving you the data to target the right lakes and the confidence to get there. Use tools like recent imagery, fishing hotspot data, or the best-in-class weather features that call out current wind, weather, barometer, moon phase, majors and minors, along with precip, and more. OnX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you'd never known existed. Download OnX Fish Midwest today, the app that is changing the game on ice and open water. Okay, we are back. We're at Hunters Point Resort. We're at the weigh-in. The ceremony is going to start here shortly. I just tracked down Bob Nitty. Bob, as far as a tournament's concerned, I know you fish a ton of different tournaments, a bunch of different series. Obviously, this format, I like this format in the sense where every fish counts. How'd everything go for you today?
It was great. I'll tell you, besides the weather being a little sporty, the format's fantastic. I mean, to go out there and be able to, and, everything over 2 pounds counts. So, I mean, you throw and catch fish after fish after fish. I think, obviously, a little nicer day, we would have put up a lot bigger numbers, but all in all, it was a great time.
I love this format. I think it's the future of walleye fishing. Obviously, the catch, record, release format has kind of dominated walleye fishing over the last 10 years for sure, but this style of fishing in particular is really fun. One angler in the boat, a marshal, and it's just you fishing. I love it.
Yeah, I had a great kid, Clayton, with me today. We had a great time together, and yeah, it's. I definitely believe this is the start of something pretty big.
Awesome. Yeah, I was super jealous and envious all day long. I was just like checking the ticker. I was on my app all day, following you all day long, buddy. So, hey, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the season, all right?
Sounds good. Thanks, Tom.
All right, my next guest is Alan Nisler. He was out there as well, fishing the tournament, braving the conditions. Al, can you tell me a little bit about how this tournament went for you?
It started off pretty slow. We had the northwest winds, so kind of had to decide where I wanted to go. But I went to the southwest side, had to go figure out if them fish were going to bite or not because they were worth going for. I had 3 fish, lost one in the first period, and it was probably the most intense, shortest period of fishing I've ever had. And then after that, we ran over to the east side for the second half and battled the wind again, but I knew they were going to bite a little better, and it just all came together. It made good casts, and they were where they were supposed to be.
That's what it's all about, especially in this wind. Bob was talking a little how sporty it was out there. I just know from being on shore today, I mean, it was ripping. And, the fact that they launched from Hunters, they split the lake in 2. I know this morning they started on one half. The second half, I saw everybody blast off and kind of head east. What was your strategy going into the second part of the day?
Come back. I was behind. But no, I knew I wanted to get over on the east side all day. I kept telling the co-angler that was with me, or the ref, if we can get to the east side and I can actually fish it correctly, we'll be okay. We'll come back. And as soon as we got to the first spot, I caught one right away, and I go, here we go. It's going to start. And then I just bounced rock piles and deep rock transition on the way through.
Very cool. How was the whole format, as far as having the marshals in the boat and doing it yourself versus a co-angler or even a partner tournament? How does this differ for you personally, just fishing the tournament?
It was actually, I liked it. I really did. It was probably the most intense I've had in a while. I mean, we're all used to 5 fish limits, trying to catch the biggest one every day. Well, now you hear you're falling behind by 2 pounds. It's like, well, I need a 3-pounder or something better. And me and one guy were going neck and neck felt like an hour and a half, and finally I crawled away from him. But yeah, I would love to do another one. It was super cool.
That's awesome. That format of catch, record, release, I'm a huge fan, obviously. But then a couple the fact on top of that where it's, as every fish counts, anything over 2 pounds. I love it. I think it's super cool. In conditions like this, it really is a testament of the angler himself, to be able to do that and to be out there by yourself, no other distractions. You've got the marshal in the boat yourself. Hey, man, hats off to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, my next guest is Kyle Minke. Kyle was out there today. Kyle, he did pretty well in the tournament. It was Bucky as usual, always Mille Lacs Lake. It seems like all season it's been a windy year. But tell us a little bit about the tournament, how fishing went for you, kind of your style of fishing, if you will. You don't have to give up the ghost, but as far as how you were fishing and where you found them and kind of what patterns you put together.
Okay, yeah. It was sure a bumpy ride out there this morning trying to get across the lake. There was a lake split, so we had to fish the west side this morning and then the east side in the afternoon pretty much. So it took me like 45 minutes to get across the lake, and I was actually started on like a long rock point, and they weren't there at all, and it was super windy, and I ended up going into a bay, fishing some weeds. They weren't really in there, so I came out to the break in like 15, 17 feet, and I ended up catching a few. I casted at a bunch of them. They just were super moody. I think that storm had them tight to the bottom. They just did not want to bite. I'd throw like a jig and shiner at them, and they would just veer off. And I got lucky, and I think I caught like 5 or 6 in the morning or whatever. And then I started heading north a little early and just hitting a few little areas that I found in practice. I didn't really want to fish the east side in the morning. I would have rather fished it in the afternoon because the fish were actually moving up in the weeds in the afternoon a lot better. But I kind of made it work. We were doing okay after the first period or whatever, and then the second period came around, and I wanted to come all the way to the east side, but I ended up stopping on the north side because I knew there was tons of fish up there, but I knew they were moody, and I just was hoping to get a few. I ended up not catching any. I ran like right to somewhere around Melmo and fished some shallow sand. There was a little bit of weeds, but it was mostly sand. And I was throwing a jig and a shiner at them, and I had a 1/4 ounce jig on, and it was just not the deal. Like I got a few bites. I ended up catching like 2. Finally, I just took some time. I sat down. I tied on a 3/8 ounce jig, put on a Rapala mooch minnow, and the first fish I casted at ate it, and it was like a 3/14. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. And that's how I caught the rest of my fish the rest of the day. I'm just so glad I tied on that 3/8 ounce because it was so windy, and the 1/4 ounce just wasn't doing the job. So I'm glad I made that switch, and ended up doing okay. Ended up finishing 4th, and was happy with that. I wish it wasn't so windy. I was really excited to fish some rocks on the east side because they were loaded in there. And I was in a bass boat, and I don't think I could have fished. I mean, I maybe could have fished it, but there was like 4 and 5 footers, so it would have been.
I can't imagine coming in a bass boat, seeing the waves out there right now, just being here at the award ceremony. It's those subtle adjustments. You touched on a couple things. One, the format where you can only fish the one part of the lake that they tell you to fish, and then the next, the second part of the day they tell you where you're going to fish next, is sort of intriguing to me. It adds that whole element to the lake because, just as a guide and somebody who spends a ton of time out here this morning, if they would have said, hey, you got to go over there, like you said, you have a kind of a strategy in your head that mixes things up, but you did great. Subtle adjustments like that 3/8 ounce jig, throwing that mooch minnow on. Sometimes it's just something so subtle that you went from a 1/4 ounce jig to a 3/8 ounce jig. Paid off for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
My next guest, Chad.
Pat's next.
Sorry, Chad.
It's all right.
My mouth isn't working. It's so cold out there. I can't imagine you guys dealing with this in the tournament. It's been such a windy year. You pulled it off 2nd place. Congratulations. Can you tell the listeners a little bit how you went about finding fish, your format from this morning to this afternoon? You don't have to give specific locations, but just sort of your mindset and the realm, and how you got into 2nd.
Pre-fish for the win, looking for that on the west side. Found a bunch of shallow fish, caught them on a jig and a shiner. Got lucky, they stayed there. The sun came out this morning for a half-hour window, and I made hay while the sun shined, and then clouds came back and the bite got tough again, but we did enough work to get there.
That's kind of been Mille Lacs in a nutshell all year. I've been out here periodically guiding on different days. It's like you go to one spot and they're loaded and they're biting. You go back there the next and they're not. How do you adjust, with this format where you can fish one side of the lake, in the morning and the other side in the afternoon? That kind of presents a challenge. How did you overcome some of that?
Got really lucky with the lake split. My best morning bite was on the west side, so being able to fish in the morning worked into our wheelhouse, and then my best afternoon was on the east side. So both sides worked well for me that way.
And then, of course, the wind factor, right? All season it's been extremely windy. When I came here this afternoon for the award ceremony, like typical Mille Lacs, tournament day hits and it's windy. But this year it's been windy all year. it's ripping right into here to hunters. What were some of your boat strategies as far as boat control, how you were fishing? Did you have to upsize? Did you have to do something to adjust for fishing on this side?
Boat control was the hardest today because my spot lock broke. So as soon as I would catch one, instead of being able to spot lock, I would have to fight the fish. I'd drift off the school, net it, then we'd have to weigh it, mark everything down, and then I'd be, in this wind, I'd be who knows how far away, 300 yards, 200 yards away, Then you'd have to motor back up and find them again and then get back on them. So that hurt me today. But I knew the fish were going to be in the windiest area, so I had to go to it, and I just made it work.
Right on, dude. That's unbelievable. I mean, to have the stress factor of you're trying to record as many fish as possible and to drift off of your spot, you must have been under intense stress at that point to get back to that spot and get back on those fish.
My boat marshal, Emmett, actually made it a lot less stressful. He was a really cool kid, good conversations, and, he just kept me happy-go-lucky all day.
Awesome, man. Hey, congratulations, Chad. Thanks for jumping on the podcast. I see you got your check. I'll let you get back to the rest of the people here. Congratulations, my man. Okay, my next guest, Tony Nitty, did quite well in the tournament. As always, the Nitties are always on top. They're fishing the maniacs, Tone, I got some insight from a lot of other anglers as far as the tournament format, what they liked about this tournament. I've got some insight as far as how they were fishing. How did the tournament go for you?
It went well. It started off slow. Our first spot, the fish just weren't there. I think the cold front had something to do with that. But as the day went on, we found them. We were pitching jigs and shiners in shallow sand on the sand breaks. Got a few, missed a few. And then we had our break, and we went to our one spot and sat there the rest of the day. We switched to a jig and a leech. It seemed like on the north end, it was more leeches than it was shiners for us. And it went well. The nice thing about this format is you get to pitch at pretty much anything. You don't have to worry is it big enough? Is it 26? It's just, hey, it's a decent mark. Let's throw on it. So boating the fish, catching that number of fish, it makes it a lot of fun.
It's cool. Bob said that on stage that, a lot of these tournaments, you're focusing on pitching on that one big fish, right? You're hunting down that one fish, disregarding all these other walleyes, and you're looking for those specific fish. In this tournament, everything counts, everything over 2 pounds. So you're seeing numbers of walleyes. You can get into those schools of walleyes. I personally love this format. I think it's fun because not only does every fish count, but then the strategy changes from one side of the lake to the other. Like you said, going from a shiner bite on the south end to a leech bite on the north end, pretty darn cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a totally different game than what we're used to. You've heard it said many times that, I went out there for 5 bites or 6 bites. Now you're going out there for 30, 40, 50 bites. It makes it fun. But yeah, there's time management with this format. There's a lot of different aspects, which makes it fun. But the biggest thing is you can go out and catch a handful of fish. You can go out and catch 20, 30, 40 fish. It's not just sit and wait and pitch on 10 fish all day long.
That's cool. I want to whale on them. Whether I'm guiding or fishing a tournament, I want to whale on them. I have a hard time going for that 5 bites a day. That to me just isn't that fun. To have this sort of format is super cool. Congratulations, Tone. You did great in the tournament. I'm sure you're glad to be off the water. We were standing out there at the ceremony and I don't know who was colder, Tony or I.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad to be off the water. Been on the water since last Thursday, and I don't think it stopped blowing since we got here. So thank God for our Wave Pro seats and a Ranger 622. That's all I can say.
Welcome to the guide life, Tone.
No, thank you.
Congratulations. All right, we're back with Alan. Congratulations, 10 grand in this tournament, man. I know we talked to you a little bit earlier before the award ceremony. I just want to come back and say congratulations. Hey, heck of a day out there.
Yeah, thanks. It couldn't have worked out any better. This was a huge milestone for me to get a win up here.
Heck yeah. Especially in this format, in this wind, the strategy of having one side of the lake to the next. It definitely worked out for you. I just wanted to circle back and say congratulations. Go enjoy a Hunter's Point cheeseburger. You earned it, man.
Yeah, I need some food, water, dry socks. I'm wet from my ears to my feet.
The joys of tournament fishing. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. The ceremony's over. We congratulated Alan. We talked to a lot of the anglers. We're circling back with Dane here. I think, Dane, this was an awesome tournament. Obviously an awesome format, just from interviewing me and talking earlier when we were chatting. I love this format. I think it's so cool what you're doing with the marshals and everything you're doing here. A lot of smiling faces. The fact that it seemed like anglers that are going out fishing this thing, it's like them against Mille Lacs Lake today. And to see kind of just the raw emotions that they were talking about and the feelings they had, not just for the tournament today, but this whole format and what you guys are building, I think is awesome.
It's been incredible to see the sport grow and watching the walleye anglers really come together to be willing to try this format out and let me be the vehicle for them to try it. And it was very much an angler against Mille Lacs type of a thing today. The wind continued to blow, and there were moments where they could settle down, fish slow. But, in Mille Lacs fashion, when you had that cold front and you had a goofy snap, they just got a little tight-lipped. But they all had fun, and even the anglers that were towards the bottom came up with a big smile, shook my hand, and said, please do more of these.
Mille Lacs is a great, great placeholder to do something like this because it poses so many obstacles, from weather to wind to, the boundaries that you guys set from one side of the lake to the other. I just think this is one of the most premier places to do it.
Absolutely. And it's right here an hour or so away from the Twin Cities Metro. And it reminds us that we are so blessed in Minnesota to have all the fisheries around us. So to be able to showcase that, take care of our fishery, and give the anglers something to chase after really brings a smile to my face and it warms my heart.
Super cool, Dane. I'm going to cut you loose. I know it's cold out there. You just did the award ceremony. It feels more like a fall tournament than a May tournament. But congratulations on a successful tournament. I hope to see this again. We're definitely going to circle back with you at some point here. And as this Champions Tour grows in the walleye world, I want to see it flourish and I want to see more anglers. I'm looking forward to more interviews. This has been a fantastic day for me. Just chase everybody around today.
Thank you so much, Tony, for inviting us onto the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you real soon.
Awesome, buddy. Hey, stay tuned. We've got some great fishing reports coming up for you next on the Dialed In Angling podcast.
Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
What is going on, guys? Miles from MVP Guide Service coming at you from the Mankato, Waterville, Faribault area, checking in on May 20th. Fishing has been excellent, guys. We did have a little bit of a cold front shut things down for a day or two, but otherwise right back on track. Fishing has been outstanding. Walleyes, I'm seeing inside or outside weed edges. The outside weed edge has been the best, that, 10 to 12 foot zone. Pitching jigs and minnows. Some days they want it on the bottom. Some days they want it swimming over top of them. The snitch jig, VMC snitch jig with a little piece of night crawler in the back, that has been dynamite for us. And then sometimes getting them on the plastics too, but mainly the live bait has been working the best. As far as panfish go, I'm seeing a lot of panfish set up on the same weed edges, that 7 to 10 foot zone. And we're just using a little rocket bobber and a jig and plastic for those guys. And that's been working real good. So seeing water temps in that, 63, 65, 66 range. So no spawning activity yet for any of the crappies or the bluegills. So still waiting on that. But all systems go in our area. It's been unbelievable. So if you guys want a guide trip, 507-236-2027, or check me out on Facebook at MVP Guide Service. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
What's going on, guys? Brandon Olson here with Lockjaw Guide Service with an Otter Tail County fishing report. Walleye fishing has picked up considerably the last couple days. Jig and minnow bite is going pretty good. We are catching a few fish on plastics. We're catching a few on jerk baits, catching a few on leeches. But that jig and shiner, jig and golden shiner, jig and sucker minnow, that's kind of all been working. If you can get spot tails, great. If not, get goldies. They work just as good. So 16th to 8th ounce jigs, kind of running that 7 to 10 feet right on the edge of that break. Get some wind, those fish will pull up shallower, but we're seeing most of those fish right on the cusp of the break, right at the drop. So fairly easy to find, big sand flats, come look at the edge. If you got some cabbage starting to pop up, that's even better. There's going to be a lot of good fish in there. So just work it through fast once and work it through slow. Some days they want that thing ripping, some days they want it slower. So on the crappie front of things, we're finding most of our fish right now staged up just outside spawning grounds, kind of in that 7 to 12 feet of water. Get a nice warm day, they're pulling up shallow and they are going hard. So if you know where those crappie spawn, start looking around the weed beds just outside of them, and you guys should have a great day. If you guys want to fish the Otter Tail area with me, you can give me a call at 218-640-0158, or you can find us at www.lockjawguideservice.com.
Hey, it's Tony Roach with your Mille Lacs report. I've been on Mille Lacs extensively over the last week and a half, fishing a ton of smallmouth, walleyes. My recommendation for you is if you're coming to Mille Lacs Lake, it's a killer jerkbait bite. The smallmouth are hitting X-Wraps, even the Maverick 110s, the Shadow Wraps, anything in that perch pattern, that green color. In the mornings, I start out a little bit deeper, kind of in that 10-foot rock pile range, casting, adding longer pauses. The water's super clear, so those fish will come up and hit it. Towards the afternoon, however, I shift in really, really shallow, and I'm throwing jerk baits even on the bank. There's a ton of pre-spawn females and males kind of staging up along those areas. There's a ton of bait fish in the shallows, even getting a few walleyes, throwing jerk baits up there for smallmouth. So it's been really fun in that aspect. In addition, the walleye fishing's been really good this week. With water temps warming up, the jig bite is still really good, but it's starting to shift to a leech bite, a leech and bobber bite. I caught quite a few fish this week with customers on bobbers. I'm still getting them on jigs and shiners. And don't be afraid to throw the jigs in plastics as you get towards Memorial Day weekend. If they're not hitting that jigs and shiners, put on a Crush City plastic, the jerk, the mayor, anything in that 3-inch size, and cracking those baits along the bottom. You'll catch a ton of fish. So have a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully you get out to Mille Lacs. It is a killer multi-species bite. And this time of year only comes around once. You got to get after it. Good luck fishing.
Hey guys, Remington Moran here with your Leech Lake fishing report. Overall fishing has been good, and it has been getting better every single day that we continue to get some nice weather, which has been kind of a rarity this spring. But any day we can get some sun, start warming up that water, fishing's been pretty good. Depths have been that still kind of that 8 to 12 foot kind of all over the lake. Still on mainly sand flats, rock to sand transitions, things like that. I know some fish are showing up in the weeds, and jig and spot tail has definitely been king still. I try and soak that bite as long as I can. And but I know jig and crawler bite is not far behind, and I know some people are catching them on them already. That's what I got. I guess panfish are still most of them are all still pre-spawn. Crappies and stuff, perch are all spawned out, but crappies and bluegills are all still pre-spawn, and still continue to check those warm, shallow bays. And good luck, guys. And if you need anything, 651-315-9252. Thanks. Bye.
Trigger Roach with TR Guide Service here in the Brainerd Lakes area. Walleye fishing starting to get pretty good now that the water temps have reached that 52 to 55 degree water range. Seeing most of our fish on rock to sand transitions, some sand flats, and on new growth weeds using tungsten jigs. Golds, greens, blacks have been working the best, tipped with shiners, rainbows, and fatheads have been producing our best bite. Crappies, we're seeing some up shallow still. We're seeing a few that have dipped out to that 5 to 8 foot of water range. Still using floats with jigs tipped with minnows, some plastics and hair jigs, kind of pitching them up, twitching them back, getting that bait nice and lively. Seems to be doing the trick for us. This is Trig Roach. We'll see you in the next one.
All right, that about does it for this week's edition of Dialed In Angling Podcast. I want to thank my guest, the Champions Tour, obviously the anglers that fished the Champions Tour today. Cool format, something different. Obviously, this format has been around in the bass world. Now seeing it in walleye fishing, not just catch, record, release, but every fish counts. One angler against the next. You don't have co-anglers in the boat. I like that style of fishing, the fact that they have marshals that are out there, younger kids and people that want to learn fishing, a lot of high school kids that are getting involved, being marshals in this program. Every single angler that I talked to, not just on the record for Dialed In Angling, but then when we were done recording the podcast, was talking about how much fun it was, how exhilarating it was with the marshals calling out, every 5 minutes, who is where you're sitting in position versus the other anglers. Pretty cool. I think they're growing something that could turn into something really great. So special shout out to Dane and the whole crew for allowing me to tag along a little bit today and follow this Champions Tour on Mille Lacs Lake, get some insight from the anglers. Congratulations to Alan and all of the other top anglers that we talked to on the podcast. Thanks for taking the time and sitting down with me and sharing a little bit of insight, how your day went, kind of what they were finding and what they thought about the tournament. It's Memorial Day weekend this weekend, so I just want everybody to have a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully our fishing reports helped you give some insight if you're heading north or heading to your favorite destination, as far as putting you or giving you an edge on what's going on with the bite. The bite's been pretty darn good as things have heated up here. It looks like we're really going to turn a hard corner as far as weather as we get towards Sunday into Monday, and next week looks like summer's here. So have a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. As always, I'm Tony Roach, and this has been the Dialed In Angling Podcast.